Hi, it's James from Momentus, and I've got another interview for you as part of Men's Health Week. Now, my guest today, I've known for 35 years. That's a phenomenal amount of time. I have eaten with this person, I've drank with them, I've laughed with them, I've cried with them. We've pretty much shared a lot of stuff together, and that's because, well, it's my brother. I'd like to introduce you to Ed Perryman. Hey, Ed.
Hey James, good to see you.
And you. So just thought it'd be nice to just bring a family member along and have a really good chat, like I have with the other guests, about health, as it is Men's Health Week. Ed, I'm going to just start with a really simple question. What does health mean to you?
Sure, yeah, I think it's an interesting question because I guess my base definition, I imagine wouldn't be far different from most people. So, I see it as a state of physical, mental, social well-being. And I think that's not particularly controversial, but digging a bit deeper, I think that a lot of it can be quite individual, and that's been a learning for me. Perhaps not in the physical health sense. I don't want any doctors seeing this. I mean, I wouldn't argue that sleep and exercise and good food is probably good for all of us, but particularly with mental health, I think that it's not a one size fits all, and I think for lots of us going through the pandemic as well, that's probably become more evident than ever.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that one size fits all, and that it's not. One of the other guests I've got, a guy called Paul Wood, who's an ex-professional rugby league player. The words he said that he's learned kind of as he's exited sport and is kind of pursuing his I guess the more mental side of his career rather than the physical side. He's learned that there isn't one size that fits all. I think his saying was, a wise man learns from himself, a wiser man learns from others. And it's about recognizing, do you know what, that person there, this is a lifestyle they've got, this is the work-life balance they've got, and this is why they're quite healthy. But the other person could be completely different. They might survive on less sleep. They might be more physically active than someone else. They might just have a whole different life setup. But actually, what can I learn from them to apply to myself so that I'm healthy? And we talked about optimal performance as well, and what's my optimal performance.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think you're completely right. I think it's really good for all of us to kind of ask those questions and see what's working for other people and learn from that. But at the same time, I think, and particularly sort of, when you're younger or earlier in your career, I think there's also a load of pressure, and it depends a lot on what country you live in, what your company culture's like. But, quite often we face pressures to, perform or to have our sort of dynamic look like someone else's, and we benchmark. And there might be things to learn, but at the same time, you're not that person. And I think you need to learn what works for yourself.
Yeah. And I think, thinking of your career and I guess the early part of your career, you had a lot of travel. I've traveled in my career, and I like to think, I traveled a lot in the UK into glamorous places like Slough and London, and but also got to jump on a plane and and work from Madrid and Munich and Prague, and and I think because I did it so little, it had that a slightly glamorous side to it, and the representing the company I was working for, just being somewhere different cultures, working cultures, going out in the evening, just being part of it felt nice. So I didn't, I saw the positive side of it, whereas I know you spent a significant amount of time on long plane journeys, literally landing to then go and do a TV interview in a foreign country, to go into a business meeting, to go and sell. What's your view of, when you look back at that and how you managed your physical and mental health kind of during that busy period?
Yeah, sure. It's amazing. Just as you were describing it, even imagining it now is quite difficult. Just a sort of train journey with a dodgy sandwich would be quite exciting at this point. But I think it's a really interesting one, because that whole period of doing a lot of international travel, I guess over about 10 years, really early in my career, and I do feel really lucky to have done that. I think actually probably the bigger challenge was on sort of physical health, because you're sleeping less, you like time zones are strange, you're probably eating kind of not in an ideal way, lots of airports or food on the go, things like that. So I think there were kind of small challenges and things that you get over. From a more of a sort of mental and social health perspective, I think it was actually a really good time for me. Interestingly, I think because, I was traveling at a point in my life where, in terms of relationships and family and commitments, I was in quite a good position to do that. So I think that's important for everyone is, when they're away, what are they not doing back home that they could be doing? But actually, being on the move, meeting people, immersing myself in different cultures, that actually I think made me really well and really happy, which might be sort of counterintuitive. And I think, again, going back to what what lots of us have gone through, sort of working from home over the last year and a bit, and there are some benefits to doing that. But, sometimes you realize that even things like, traveling can be just a basic human need as well. Just being able to people watch, have a random conversation with a stranger. They're all things that can give you a little lift. And I think lots of us have struggled with just not being able to do that. So I think, broadly speaking, traveling, it's definitely not straightforward. And I think it's more about what else is in people's lives that they might have to sacrifice if they're doing that a lot.
Yeah, and I think back to conversations we used to have, again, kind of early in your career, and you would talk about all the things you were trying to balance, and I remember you'd think, I'm spending a lot of time focusing on work because I'm traveling to places, I'm in a new job, I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm not getting enough time. I'm not putting enough time in with friends, and or I'm don't feel I'm connected to my family enough, and we've not caught up enough, or which is kind of on both of us. But it's interesting, that whole thing of trying to balance all the different things. It's like we've got all these plates we want to spin, and we can't do all of them. If we measure our life in 8 different lenses of, and I pick that number, it could be any, but work and career, diet and nutrition, exercise and fitness, social life, family life, wealth, religion, whatever's important. I think a lot of people get focused on saying, I've got to have all of it to have the perfect life, but you can't. You just can't spin every plate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And you've got to be, I don't know if you found this, but I think sometimes, not that people can't have this a lot of figured out, early on in their career, but I think it's probably fair to say that most people go on a bit of a journey with this and learn more over the years, and maybe get a bit more comfortable with spinning less plates, and just saying, for me at the moment, for example, my study plate isn't spinning, that's fine. I'm not doing, my exercise plate is not as good as it should be. But there are other ones where I'm in a real kind of sweet spot in terms of, relationships, friends, things like that. And I'm comfortable to be prioritizing that now.
Yeah. And it is about prioritizing, what do I want to focus on at the moment? What can I? And I think having a bit of faith that, the other stuff will take care of itself to some extent. I can't ignore it forever, but actually, what, if I'm not looking at my exercise plate for the moment, but actually I'm eating quite well, probably pubs are back open, that might change. But if you've been eating quite well and those habits have been quite good, then, exercise will be okay for a bit. I don't have to worry about that straight away. And, social life has been hard because we've been locked away. We've not been able to interact as easily with other people. So there's nothing we can do about that other than phone calls, texts, getting on a Zoom or a team with friends and family. The time will come when we can start spinning that plate a bit more. We're kind of there, aren't we? That's opening back up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think just on that, I think the other main thing is how much are you going to control it as an individual, or let, we'll all face this at various points in our lives, and particularly in a work dynamic, right? How much does where you work influence and sort of impact what the control that you actually have over that? Just what are those external influences? And I think lots of us go on a journey of our ability to kind of take a bit more control for ourselves.
Yeah. And I guess thinking back over the last year or so, being equally probably as extroverted as each other, and kind of our batteries charge when we're with people, compared to introverts where their batteries deplete and they need to recharge them by kind of having that time on their own. I know, when you weren't traveling or getting some days at home, you'd go to a shared office space like a WeWorks or something. How have you managed that over the last year or so, where that option's been cut off a bit?
Yeah, I've struggled. And,
With
I guess,
difficulty.
yeah, indeed. And I think it's, I think if people have faced that, then it's okay to be honest about it as well. And yeah, I'm sure I've driven my partner up the wall with just sort of fidgeting around and shuffling around the place, looking for, as you say, that kind of energy that we need from other people. So I think that, there are obviously some practical things that you can do. As you say, at least we're now in an environment where there are co-working spaces. I think you can reach out to other people who might be going through the same thing.
Yeah.
I've got together in, safe and legal ways to sort of co-work with people. So I think some of it is just about being practical, and there are lots of options now. And just working out lots of little tricks as well. I mean, I try and take lots of really short breaks. We all have a lot of screen time now. So just having going for a 10-minute walk, doing kind of really short, sharp exercise, just getting out and about, and then getting back into it, just things like that. And I think what's really interesting is, again, it's sort of on companies to be able to support people with this, because it's not kind of breaking news that well employees and teams that are well are more productive. That's kind of not.
Yeah.
that's proven. It well, at least it shouldn't be sort of controversial. And so I think it's nice to see, albeit off the back of something very sad and very difficult, sort of more flexibility and hopefully more trust being shown more broadly in people to just kind of, because somebody else might not need to take the quick break that I need to do, or might not need to go and work with somebody, that's fine. But being able to trust people to make those calls is good.
Yeah. And finding the right way to keep connected with people, I think, has been important, because some people need that regular check-in just on how they are, how they're getting on, give them a space to ask questions, clarify stuff. Other people want to be left the heck alone. And I'll send you an email at the end of the week with what I've done. And it's just getting that right answer, isn't it? Especially when we can't just physically look over at someone at their desk and give eyeball them and say, do you want a 5-minute chat or not? It's but I think technology has helped and used correctly to really engage with employees.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine if this was 10 years ago. There was lots of technology around, but it was a lot more frustrating, wasn't it? I think all of this would have been a lot harder. And again, I work in sort of technology and online, so it's you see it every day, and I think all of us have been so thankful to be able to kind of take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But it's also okay to admit the things that technology will never be able to replicate. But it's made it a hell of a lot easier, hasn't it?
Yeah, completely. So if you were, it sounds like, from kind of talking back about your career, actually, although you were doing a lot of stuff that some people might find quite difficult, quite stressful, especially if they're not able to plan their time well and think about the time when they're sitting on a plane, sitting on a train, in a taxi, away from home, etc. So it sounds like you had that good balance, and actually it helped you. Is there anything you would have changed, done differently in hindsight, either then or even as your career's changed and you've kind of been based more domestically, but just things you've learned that you would apply that might be helpful for other people to know?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think all of us are going to go through times where so often you're faced with a choice, aren't you, in terms of again, in the context of physical and mental health, particularly when it comes to work as well. Quite often you're faced with a choice of a late night in the office or the virtual office, or it might be time with friends or family or whatever else it is that's important to you. And basically for years, we just constantly make these decisions, don't we? Sometimes it's just in a split second, I'm going to go for that one. And I think perhaps earlier in my career, and I think this is probably quite common, there are definitely decisions I would change. Where probably, apologies to any previous employers, but I probably would have actually there were probably moments where I should have spent that time with, family or going to a certain event.
Yep.
And I prioritized something. I wasn't good enough at differentiating between perhaps professional responsibilities that were like important and urgent, or just urgent, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, I'm sure you've been there as well. You can just get in this slightly unhealthy cycle. And I think just for people earlier in their career, the sooner you can get towards a point where you sort of know yourself and can make those good calls, and make sure you're working at somewhere which is a fit for you as well. And just to kind of calibrate that one more bit as well, I'm not saying to people work less, because I've worked at a few startups as well, and I know people who actually are in a really good place, physically, mentally, working loads and loads of hours because they're really excited, they're in a sweet spot, they're in that moment of their career. And actually it'd probably be quite annoying for them to hear, you should sometimes you should work less, or you should prioritize these other things, because who am I to lecture them if they've chosen which plates to spin? And sure, there might be warning signs if it's stress that you could see as a friend, and you could say to them, maybe you should go on holiday. But I think some people can be working a hell of a lot and be really, really healthy. So we shouldn't presume that it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, it is. And I was talking with someone last night we're talking about burnout and stress and chronic stress, and how sleep is just so important. And humans need a minimum 7 hours sleep. It's proven. But it's also proven that there's about 1.4% of the population that can survive on less. And they're often the people we see, and they might be in the 5 a.m. club, the 6 a.m. club, and get up there, get the first sale of the day, whatever it might be, and you think, that's what I've got to do, and be like that. But you won't be effective. You'll get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon and think, why am I drained? Why is this email taking me an hour to do when it should just be 5 minutes? My productivity is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think get to know what some of the warning signs are as well. And again, it might be different for everybody, and we've both gone through what sort of warning signs are, and probably you get to them way too late. I know I have, but for example, if it's waking you up in the middle of the night, it's probably not good. If it's making you do various kind of other unhealthy things consistently, it's probably not good. But I think it's very easy, again, quite early, to be like, that's normal, it's work hard, play hard. To be successful, it's that's okay. But I think, broadly speaking, it's probably not actually, and you probably need to take a step back.
Yeah. And you'll remember probably like 15, 16 years ago when I physically burnt out and was head to toe in psoriasis. But the words I said to my doctor at the time were, but I'm riding a wave. I was doing a lot of traveling, not international traveling, but the top end and bottom end of the UK. But I was loving it. It was working with great people, working on brilliant stuff. And I had a lot of those bad habits, the working all through the night once a week, far too friendly with a can of Red Bull, just that kind of thing. And it just, my body said, you've had enough of this, can't take this anymore. And, I was pushing myself mentally, not so much physically, even though I was traveling a lot. It wasn't that bad, but mentally I was pushing myself. But it was my body that just said, brakes on, had enough of this. And the night, do I wish I hadn't gone through it? No, actually, I think I needed to. I needed to know what those habits were that I'd formed and I'd started doing, so that further on into my career, and then as a business owner, I know when I'm just starting to set myself up for failure, planning an impossible week ahead of myself that just won't happen. And so I'll either be sacrificing the gym, eating rubbish, working too long, and still not getting everything done, which has that mental impact. But I probably, who knows, if I hadn't gone through that, I could still be adopting some of those bad habits if I wasn't listening to other people and and learning from them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I see your point. It's just I guess it would be great if people didn't have to get to that point. And I guess that's where these kind of conversations help. And it's never plain sailing, but if people can actually get to the point where they're not physically kind of unwell, then then I think, you know, we're all doing something good by talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's round things up then. So for people who are, you know, they're mid-career, and you know, they are ambitious. They're maybe still, you know, following other people, thinking this is how I've got to work, this is how I've got to be successful, and you know, there are some words of advice we can give to them. What would that be? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I guess it kind of builds on what we've been talking about today. So I think, you know, get to know yourself more than anything. You know, what makes you healthy isn't going to be the same as necessarily your CEO or whoever else you're sort of trying to you know, emulate or support. And that's in terms of what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what makes you stressed. So, you know, just actually get to that place where you're kind of, you know, what those things are, because only then can you actually take control of it. I would say it becomes increasingly important to work in an organization, or if you're perhaps self-employed, you know, work with people and partners where there is a fit. You know, there are ways of working, and there are cultures that are really different, you know, particularly in an international context. And I've definitely seen that. I mean, what a behavior in one country, which is seen as a weakness in another, is seen as kind of a strength or something to be held in high regard. So I think, you know, once you know what makes you healthy, try and surround yourself with people or an organization where there's a fit and there's an understanding.
Perfect. Younger Perryman, thank you very much. And everyone watching, I hope you've enjoyed this special guest. I think this time, as I said at the beginning, nice to bring a family member on, and someone that's just at a different stage in the career, and that we can learn from. So Ed, thank you very much, and have an awesome rest of the day.